Here in this pie, you see what is the current proportion or structure of media ad market in Latvia. These are black figures. Like, for example, TV now has a 40% of share in the total ad market. And this is how much they have lost from their money in the first half of this year, comparing to the last year, first half of the last year. So you see that magazines and newspapers are the most heavy hit. Almost 60% of money is gone from magazines, and more than a half for newspapers. And here, seeing this, I think it's more obvious and explains what has happened also to Diena, and why we are in a situation that Diena has been sold in July, and why I'm here. So basically what happened is that Diena also lost more than a half of the ad money, and since Diena was the leader of this segment, and in particular ad segments like in, for example, job classifieds, it was #1 with a very big distance from other followers. Of course, Diena was most severely hit. And as I mentioned already, we had to do a lot of cost-cutting measures, and still it didn't work, since in July, our owner, Bonnier's company, which is an international media group based in Sweden, but it operates really internationally, decided to sell Diena. And Diena as a group is the biggest media group in Latvia. It has several branches, and one of the branches, called Dienas Mēdī, deals with newspaper publishing, and it also publishes Diena and Free Sheet 5 Minutes and regional titles, and also websites. So the situation was that after trying to cut the costs and really to manage the operational situation this year, Bonniers decided to leave the Latvian market. Why they did it, it's quite unclear. They themselves declared that they are not so ready to take losses this year. Just to explain, Diena, as the biggest media group in Latvia, has always been profitable until last year. Last year, when this ad market collapsed already in the fall of 2008, we already experienced a big money deficit, and we ended last year with a loss. And Bonniers told that they are, of course, going to accept some losses even this year, but they limited what kind of money they are going to spend. As far as we know, they also had cash problems back home and in different other countries where they are bleeding. So although they promised that they are going to stay behind us, and we valued very highly the cooperation we have had throughout these like 18 years, on the 3rd of July they made an announcement that they are selling Diena. And I think that the change of ownership is not a problem in itself. I think the problem with the change of ownership was how it was done, and what happened next. The first problem, I would say, is that actually Bonniers sold Diena to the unknown investors. They were not made public. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to explain why is it so important in Diena's situation to be clear about the ownership issue and who had the money to buy Diena. If you look at the media market in Latvia, I would say that Diena for the years have been the most influential player on this media landscape. And its core values were like honesty and transparency, and we were asking everybody else to apply to these high standards, and we were quite aggressively pushing for these issues and being quite harsh on politicians and different economical groups, really to stand for honest operations. And now, when this ownership change happened, we found ourselves in a situation that we can't live by our standards. Well, just a small time before the ownership change of Diena, we also had this interesting case that our national airline shares were sold to a person who, just before the deal, thought that he has no money for this, to buy these shares, and after a week he bought them. And we of course asked, where does the money come from? And now after this Diena ownership change, he thought, you know, I don't feel that I have to answer you, because you can't tell me where comes the money for Diena buyout. No, this guy who bought shares from Air Baltic, from SAS, it's CEO of Air Baltic, and there are some well, hints that maybe some local politicians are involved in this deal, and maybe some Russian forces stand behind this airline deal. But also the same applies to this case of Diena selling, because the representative of owners, Aleksandrs Stramaks, have made confusing statements about who is an investor. At first he thought that it's some wealthy Estonian guys who have made their fortune during technology hype. Then for months he thought that he's working to really found an entity that will clearly and openly show who owns Diena, where does the money come from, because officially this ownership change has been set up in a way. Usually in Latvia, politicians they use this chain of offshores to show real beneficiaries of the deal. It's quite popular, and this company that holds the Diena shares is officially registered in Luxembourg by 2 Panama firms, and you can't in public record access information about shareholders. You can't do it. It's unimaginable. And actually, that's an issue I also asked to Bonniers, that I can't imagine that Bonniers, an international media company with a reputation, have sold one of the leading media players in Latvia, knowing very well what is the influence and impact of Diena. They have sold it to this very very unclear setup of company, but they have done it. So this was one issue, this uncertainty about real owners, and we had no way to prove one way or another, or stand against those rumors that were going on and still are going on, because no evidence have been presented as to who are the real beneficiaries in this case. In October, 9th of October, a representative of the owners announced that the real investors from the very beginning have been Rowland family. It's a wealthy family